Hello, BookTube. I'm over here. So this week I had a bit of an allergic reaction to something and my eyes and cheeks are still a little bit swollen, so this is not really a face for YouTube. I might have to upload this video in 480p, but we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about the Sun-Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio. The series has concluded with the 7th and final book, Shadows Upon Time, and I'm going to be letting you guys know whether I think you should read it. The short answer, yes. Slightly longer answer, yes but. And for my full answer, I'm going to be splitting this video into 3 parts. What is Sun-Eater? What type of readers I think might enjoy it? And what did I think of the finale, Shadows Upon Time? So firstly, Sun-Eater is a first-person framed narrative. Our main character, Hadrian Marlowe, tells us in the very first chapter, he destroys a sun, wiping out an alien race, killing billions. Some people view him as a hero, others a monster, and we must read along in order to make that decision for ourselves. Stylistically, I refer to it as Sword and Planet Sci-Fantasy space opera. It's an epic journey filled with action and adventure, and is packed full of historical, literary, and philosophical references. The series that it reminds me the most of are Dune, Hyperion, and Book of the New Sun. So that's the quick pitch for Sun-Eater. Now, based on the execution, what type of readers do I think might like it? If you're a character-first reader, I think your enjoyment might come down to whether you connect with Hadrian as a character. The story is told from his perspective, and he is constantly inserting his thoughts and opinions into the narrative. Now, some people find young Hadrian annoying in the early books, and grow to like him more later on. Personally, I actually found young Hadrian's flaws more entertaining, and was kind of conflicted about older Hadrian. If I had to choose whether to drink a beer with young Hadrian or old Hadrian, it would definitely be young Hadrian. But regardless of how much I like Hadrian as an individual, I think a strength of the series is how much we can see him age throughout the series. He really gets put through the ringer, and you can feel the ways in which this changes him. He is an unreliable and complex character, and I'm sure your opinions will shift on him throughout the series. And then in terms of the secondary characters, I think this can be a little hit or miss. There are some characters that I absolutely love in this series, but I also don't think there were quite as many satisfying story arcs for as many of the secondary characters as I think there could have been. Overall, I'm going to say that character-first readers will most likely enjoy Sun-Eater, depending on what they think of Hadrian. Next, if you're a plot-first reader, I think it depends on what type of plotting you prefer. I would describe the pacing in Sun-Eater as medium. It's not as fast-paced as something like Red Rising, and it balances the action with political machinations and exploring the world. But even though the books are relatively chunky, I felt like I got through them rather quickly. Some people find the first book a little derivative, although I still enjoyed it quite a lot. And then the series starts to get increasingly weird and ambitious. I think something that the series does really well is build to these incredible emotional high points and then deliver these devastating low points. Sun-Eater is certainly an emotional roller coaster. Unless you're looking for a light, fast-paced read, I think most plot-driven readers will enjoy Sun-Eater. Moving on to world building, if you're someone that likes to explore different planets, histories, cultures, languages, religions, then Sun-Eater is the series for you. The Solan Empire feels rich and alive, and there's plenty for you to dive into and uncover within the series. This isn't at the top of my own personal list of reading priorities as a sci-fi reader, but I think it will appeal to fantasy fans in particular. After that, we have science fiction concepts. This is not a hard sci-fi series. If you're looking for a space opera rooted in theoretical physics, then go read the Zeely sequence, go read Revelation Space. This might not be the series for you. Although having said that, I do think that Ruocchio puts enough effort into some of the technical descriptions to at least make it feel like it was a consideration, and he also introduces some interesting elements to do with transhumanism. Next up, we have readers that read books for the themes. And this series tackles a lot of heavy political, philosophical, and religious themes. It's certainly a thought-provoking series and will give you a lot of interesting ideas to engage with. I will say though, it is a complex task trying to draw conclusions on what the book is saying versus what Hadrian is saying, and then taking into account the fact that Hadrian changes throughout time and is also an unreliable narrator. I think these themes may resonate with you, they may not, or you might be left in some sort of murky place in between, and you might find that intellectually stimulating or unsatisfying. And finally, we have the prose snobs. If you are someone that reads books for the writing, then you are in for a treat, because Ruocchio's prose is beautiful and evocative and memorable, and I think he displays a certain amount of craftsmanship and appreciation for literature. If I had to nitpick, I would say that sometimes I have a little trouble visualizing some of the scenes, and I think he is stronger at writing fight scenes than battle scenes, although I do still enjoy both. So overall, even though reading is obviously subjective and your experience may vary, I would say it is most likely worth trying for most readers, unless you know for sure you are looking for something that is light and fast-paced, or specifically driven heavily by the science. So this brings me to Shadows Upon Time. Now, I am a fan of the series. I have given the first 6 books a score between an 8.5 and a 9.5 out of 10, with Demon in White being my favorite. So what did I think of the ending? How does Shadows Upon Time compare? Well, to start, I think the biggest positive is that this book is epic. The battles are huge, the stakes are high, and it feels like a fitting conclusion to the Sun Eater journey. There were large stretches of the book where I was just turning through the pages because I just needed to know what happens next, what happens next. And even though I do think there were some minor pacing issues at times, I got through all 900 pages pretty quickly. Now, another strength was the political machinations. If you're someone that enjoys the scheming and politicking of the various factions within the Empire, I think you're going to enjoy the power struggles that take place in Shadows Upon Time. Now, I was a big fan of Disquiet Gods, but one minor drawback for me was that in a series that is already very Hadrian-centric, this was arguably the most Hadrian-centric book, and I missed some of the supporting characters. Well, in Shadows Upon Time, I don't think every supporting character necessarily has the most satisfying arc, but there are others which really get to shine. So, depending on which characters in the series are your favorites, you may be more or less pleased in that regard. Moving on to some things that I was a little mixed on, this book is really heavy on the lore, and that might be to some people's taste, but for me, there was just a little bit too much info dumping, and I was eager to get back to the story and the characters. And something that I think is going to be polarizing is the opening. Ruocchio uses a technique that doesn't break the rules of Sun Eater, but I think it finds a loophole, and even though it was an ambitious swing, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It bounces around a lot, and I started to get a little confused and lose some interest in terms of what was happening. Some of the books in the series start with a time jump, and some readers find this disorienting. But to be honest, I probably would have just cut the first 150 pages of this book and jumped in right there. If you've read it, let me know what you think in the comments. I anticipate people are going to be split pretty 50-50 on this. Something else I should mention is that this book, by far, places the heaviest emphasis on religious themes. Religion has always been a part of the lore and history and world building of Sun Eater, and then in Disquiet Gods it started to play a little bit more of a part in the story, and in Shadows Upon Time it becomes a major focus. And I don't think that's inherently a good or bad thing. I'm not saying that if you're not religious, you won't like it, or if you're religious, you won't like it. That's going to be a very personal thing, and how you think the book executes on those themes is going to be an individual response. Personally, I found books like Hyperion and Contact to explore religious themes in a way that I found to be thought-provoking. However, in Shadows Upon Time, it just wasn't something that really resonated with me, and I found those elements less interesting than other aspects that I do enjoy about Sun Eater. Now, I mentioned earlier that Sun Eater gets kind of weird, and I meant that in a good way. It can be rather surreal and mysterious, and I like that in the series. However, in the final book, it did stray just a little too far into the fantastical for my tastes. As someone that is primarily a sci-fi reader, I like knowing how things work, and there were quite a lot of scenes in this book where something happens, but not really, or something happens, but you don't know how. I think if you like soft magic systems, then this might not be as much of an issue. But if you're someone that leans towards harder magic or harder science fiction, then it might feel a little bit nebulous and unsatisfying. And finally, a big question I had was, how was I going to feel about Hadrian in the end? And I have to say that I ended up feeling a little disconnected from Hadrian. Most of the Sun Eater books have left me feeling super fired up or just completely devastated. But when it came to Shadows Upon Time, and specifically Hadrian, I just felt rather emotionally distant. So what is my final verdict? Well, I gave Shadows Upon Time an 8 out of 10. This is the Sun Eater book that I had the most issues with, and that is the lowest score I've given. But 8 out of 10 is still a good score, and I still enjoyed it because the base level Sun Eater goodness is still there, with the quality of writing, action, plotting, and dialogue. I think that a lot of my issues were pretty specific to my reading tastes, so depending on your preferences, I could see this being someone's favorite or least favorite Sun Eater book. If you've read it, let me know where it ranks for you in the comments. So there you go, that's a wrap on Sun Eater. But before we go, now the series is done, I need another sci-fi book to read. So let's spin the quantum wheel in order to find the patron pick for the month of December. Welcome to the quantum wheel, where all of the patron picks are both simultaneously picked and not picked until we observe a winner. Let's find out the final patron pick of the year and what I'll be reading in the month of December. Is it going to be hard, soft, modern, classic? Only the wheel knows. And it looks like it could be Time and Again, or maybe it hangs on to Time and Again. Okay, so I've been looking forward to reading some more Simac, and I enjoy time travel stories. This is a classic. How high is it going to end up in my time travel book rankings? We shall have to wait and see, but not long, because I'm going to be reading it this month. Join me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash or just gently click the subscribe button. And if you really enjoyed it, consider checking out the perks of becoming a Patreon member, where you can become one of my robots, androids, or cyborgs, like Nima and New Eden, Half-Ogre, Zakawe, Samil, Colin, and the shiny new metal Bamsis. And you can find more sci-fi content, I'm gonna guess, maybe over here. Yeah, let's try that.